What is a supply chain? A supply chain is a network of activities that delivers a finished product or service to the final customer. Okay, we have here two words, network and activities. What are the activities that I'm thinking of? We are here interested in activities related to logistics, of course. So some of these activities are, for example, sourcing of raw materials and parts. Sourcing means buying, procuring raw materials and parts. We need to make sure that our company gets access to the raw materials or the parts of a product. Other activities include the manufacturing, the production process, the assembling of products. Activities can also include the warehousing, so storing goods, finished goods, parts of a good in a warehouse, storing the raw materials in a warehouse, doing something with these products in the warehouse, but it also includes the entries of new orders, the tracking of the status of the orders, and as well the distribution and the delivery of our products to the customers. Well, these are some of the activities. Now, what does network mean? Yeah. All these activities are connected with each other and they influence each other. Yeah. This means network. Yeah. There's an interdependence between the activities. Let's say our warehouse suddenly breaks down and we are no longer able to store things. Yeah. Then this affects our sourcing decisions because we should not buy even more products to make our warehouse even fuller. We may have to cancel orders. Maybe we don't have enough space to produce the goods for our customer, so it will affect our distribution and delivery to the customer. Or let me give you another example. Maybe the new orders from our customers go down sharply for whatever reason. Maybe it's COVID time, maybe the competition is much better, though the order volume goes down, and this has an impact on the space we need in our warehouse, the utilization of our warehouse. It has an impact on how we manufacture and assemble the products, how much we need to buy in raw materials and parts, and how we organize the delivery to our customers. So, activities are related to logistics activities, and network means they are interdependent, connected with each other, and they impact each other. And on the other hand, what is very important for supply chains is that the supply chain of an organization is always supported by an information system, by an IT system. And this IT system can come in different variants. It might be just email communication, exchange of some Excel files. That's a quite realistic system. It can also be a much more sophisticated system like an ERP, Enterprise Resource Planning System, or Advanced Planning System that tries to automate some of the decisions. But there will be always several software components that support the decision making and the exchange of information in a supply chain. What data is now exchanged in a supply chain? Well, a very important data that is exchanged is our sales data. So what do we sell to the customers? What do we sell to the final customer? Because the demand of the final customer will impact many other decisions in our supply chain. When we know that the demand of the final customer is high, then we need to buy more raw materials. We need to have more capacity for production. We need to have more capacity for distribution. So this sales data is a very important data that is shared more or less automatically, but with the help of an information system. Of course, not every sales data is shared. Maybe it's shared in an aggregated way, but there is some data sharing involved. We also share, or what can also be shared is a forecast. Maybe we try to make a forecast of how much we will sell next year, and then based on this forecast, we communicate this forecast to our suppliers and their suppliers so that they can adjust for the production process. Shared is also production plan data, so how much do we produce, when do we produce, what is the available capacity for production. Inventory levels are shared, inventory level in production in different warehouses. Shipping schedules, when do we expect that the delivery will happen. This is information that will be shared by the means of an information system. And now it's very important that typically we always share some of the data, but not necessarily everything. Because if we share everything, companies are reluctant to this. They are afraid that this data will be abused and used against them. On the other hand, the more data you share, the more effective the whole supply chain can become. So there's always a trust issue and a balancing issue between how much data should be shared with our suppliers. Here's an example of a basic supply chain. It's taken from our textbook from Reid and Sanders. So this picture shows a very basic supply chain. From the top to the bottom is the flow of the goods. So on the top we have some raw materials. This is some wood. The wood is delivered to the manufacturer, and the manufacturer produces some finished goods, like furniture. Or this manufacturer pre-processes the wood, and it gets delivered to a wholesaler, a big warehouse, a distribution center, and from this warehouse or distribution center, the goods are delivered to the individual retail stores. And in the retail stores, the customers can buy the finished furniture, the finished goods. So you have this flow of goods from one level to the next level, from top to bottom. But at the same time, you always have a flow of information. At the retailer level, for example, you have point of sales data. So this means how much do we sell from a product. The retailer might also inform us, the members of the supply chain, about some promotional plans that might affect the sales data. The retailer may also inform us about how much is in the retailer's inventory. And the retailer may also inform the other suppliers in the supply chain about some changing customer demands. Maybe a special type of furniture is considered outdated and no longer demanded. Some special color is now in, and this will affect the future sales data. On the manufacturer and raw material level, shipping schedules can be shared, items and quantities, what do we produce, when do we expect them to be shipped, how long will the shipping roughly take. On the manufacturer level, what are the production plans, what do we have in our inventory. Though this is information that will be shared, at least in part, with all the levels in the supply chain. When the customer demand changes on the retailer level, we inform the wholesaler and the manufacturer and the suppliers about this, and then they can adjust their own production plans. And you see how all this is connected based on the flow of goods and the flow of information. Let's have a look at the dairy supply chain, a supply chain for a manufacturer. Let's take Masoon Company. They produce dairy products like laban, yogurt, milk, and so on. And these are the products they produce. And of course, you're very familiar with these products because you can buy these products yourself every day when you go for grocery shopping. For example, at Nesto, Ludo, Spinneys, Carrefour, etc. So you're the customer, you are the final customer who consumes the milk, the laban, and you buy this in the retail store. So this happens on the level of the external distributors from the point of view of Masoon company. Now we have the point of view of Masoon company. And the point of view of Masoon company is here on this level in this brownish color, where the processing and packaging facilities happens. So Masoon delivers the finished dairy products to the different retailers where you can buy it. On the other hand, Masoon has a couple of suppliers, external suppliers. So maybe they order raw dairy products from a dairy farm. They need to order their cardboard containers from a supplier. They don't produce the cardboards themselves. They might have a labeling company, and they will have a supplier for plastic containers, for these plastic containers. So they don't produce these plastic containers themselves. And there's always a flow of good involved, a material flow with a solid line, and a flow of information expressed by the dashed line. For example, the plastic containers, we order a certain volume of plastic containers. This is an information flow. Then the manufacturer for the plastic containers might confirm this order or might say, look, we cannot supply you with the required amount, though this is feedback information, or it will just tell you a delivery date. And these suppliers on this level are called Tier 1 suppliers. Tier 1 suppliers directly supply our manufacturing company. There's no middleman in between, therefore they are called Tier 1 suppliers. However, if we now look at the plastic container manufacturer, this company itself has again their own suppliers, like a chemical plant that delivers the chemicals to produce the plastic container, and this chemical plant has itself a raw material supplier that can supply the required raw materials. Again, we have information flows and material flows, and now on this level we call these suppliers Tier 2 suppliers from the point of view of Masoon company, because they only indirectly supply Masoon companies, and they are Tier 2 suppliers of Masoon, are Tier 1 suppliers of Masoon's Tier 1 suppliers. And for Tier 3 suppliers, the same applies. So we have here the structure with Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3 suppliers. And now what becomes more interesting when you study the structure of supply chains, we now had a look at this supply chain, at this dairy supply chain from the point of view of Masoon company. If you change the point of view, and let's take the point of view of a retail grocer like Lulu hypermarket, then the supply chain of Lulu hypermarket will look very differently, because Masoon is only one of their Tier 1 suppliers, but they have many other Tier 1 suppliers for cosmetic, vegetables, beef, whatever. Though the retail grocery will have many Tier 1 suppliers for different materials, for different goods, but the retail grocer typically does not have an external distribution because the retail grocer directly sells to the final customer. So depending on the point of view we take, the structure of the supply chain might change significantly. Though we talked about these external suppliers, tier 1 suppliers who supplies directly to the manufacturer, tier 2 supplier who supplies directly to a tier 1 supplier, etc. We have internal functions of the company like processing, purchasing, production planning, and control, shipping. So this happens in this box: purchasing, shipping, production planning, etc. for all the Mazoon products. And we have the external distributors. On the external distributors, we have, for example, some traffic management, where we select our carriers, our trucking companies, who should move our products. Do we have some bigger shipping companies when we deliver, for example, outside Oman? Then it becomes more complicated, of course. We have some distribution management. What packaging should we use? How shall we store our products? For dairy products, storing is, of course, it's more complicated because the temperature is very important. How do we handle the products? How do we receive them? Etc. So a company is typically involved in a number of different supply chains. So each company is not only involved in a single supply chain, which is often a point of view in the discussion, and we often forget that a company is actually part of many supply chains. And from this discussion you can see that the structure of supply chains comes in all flavors, in all colors. There are many different structures. There's not a single unique structure that everyone follows. It depends on the company, on the market, on the customers, etc. So it's highly flexible.